Mr. Allegretti,
Here, present.
Mr. Diaz,
Yes, also.
Ms. Kendall, Mr. Rice,
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So this is, Lamont sent us the agenda. There was no comments on it, but this is the chance to look at it and see if anybody has any proposed changes. There being none, then we'll go ahead and then assume then that the approval of the agenda has been done. We have 3 sets of minutes, and it's incredible that all these things are going on and that we are leaving a record. I had asked you guys to just double check to make sure that we're okay with all the notes. And so I needed to do one little change, see if I can pull it up. 10:27. So we have 3 sets of minutes, our regular meeting and then 2 hearings. So I am on October 27th one. There was a 5-year report. Oh, actually, it was, my note was just to look at it. It doesn't change the minutes. I'm just still pending pictures from everybody. So that's a big reminder for me, because it'd be nice to have it on file for the upcoming reports. So besides that, I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve these minutes. You can do them one at a time or all 3 at once. They're all good.
I'd make a motion to approve all 3 minutes as stated in the agenda.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tony. Tony and Tony. All right, let's have a roll call vote.
Mr. Allegretti?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Minutes stand approved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Lamont. So having done that, we'll just keep going down so we can get to the meat of today. So we have, as is the time as the public to make contributions. We have no one raising their hand, and so we'll just say then that there is no public input today. At least none that's spoken. I know various of us are getting emails, so that's good. So we'll move on to number 5, officers report. Ms. Boyd, that's you.
Okay. Since we've last met, we didn't meet in November for an official meeting, but we did have 2 appeals hearings, one on the 5th and one on the 19th. We had one scheduled for December 3rd or December 10th, but that one was postponed. So I will be rescheduling additional appeals hearings once we set our schedule for the coming year. There was one complaint that came in, but we did not have jurisdiction over that. It was basically for the Champaign County Task Force. And so it is loaded in the portal to review, but there was no action taken on that We did have one FOIA request. We are currently working on that, myself and Mr. Peppers, and that should be taken care of probably tomorrow. We have until the 29th, Lamont, you can just yes or no. Yeah, the 29th. We have until December 29th to get that turned in, but we will have that turned in long before that. I did upload training materials into the portal. The videos, the welcome from the mayor, and then all of the other trainings that should have taken place with the members. So please review that. And if you haven't viewed all of the videos and the information in the training materials file, then please go ahead and do so. Also, we still have the ride-alongs to do. And the person that we will contact is Sergeant Colby Wright. And you can call the front desk. And the number is 217-384-2320, or you can just email him and I will forward his email to everyone. He typically works 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So you will have to get in contact with him during those hours. If not, you can contact the front desk and I'm sure they will relay that message to him. And I also uploaded the Open Meetings Act and FOIA PowerPoints that I received when I did the webinar trainings from the Attorney General's office. And so those are there for your preview also. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Carla. Actually, that comes up as a couple of items that will probably come back to then as unfinished business. But thank you for reporting all that. There is something, Carla, that that I've learned. You know, we meet almost every week, and when you were hired, you know, it all seemed like everything was fine. Now we're going to have support directly, and it's happened. But I did not realize what are your other charges. So can you give us just a couple of bullet points of things that that also fall under your description, your job description? You're just busy.
Well, part of my role is to receive complaints, not only from the CPRB, but I'm also from the Human Rights Commission, which I am staff for with those. If complaints come in and I have to gather the information on them and possibly file a formal complaint. And once that is done, I have to do the investigation behind those. That's reaching out to the respondent, getting that information, and then following up with the complainant until we can come to a resolution for that complaint. That is time consuming because you have to get all documentation and you have to go through it, and then you have to respond to it and get that information with interviews and things like that. I'm also charged with educating our community. I'm currently developing materials for the community, for all groups, the community at large, as well as for landlords, as for the potential renters. We're looking at information for businesses, just so that everyone can have an idea of what the Human Rights Ordinance is, as well as the CPRB ordinance. I'm also gathering materials for the CPRB and the HRC for their outreach, getting those materials together so that when both boards are ready to go out and do outreach into the community, they'll have the materials that they need. And then anything that happens in the office, any calls that come in, I'm required to respond to them.
Well, as far as rents and landlords, do you deal with all rental complaints or landlord?
If they come in, yes. It's an office of one in that aspect. So yeah, I have to do all of that.
Okay, thank you. And I actually saw Mr. Peppers in a Rotary meeting recently. And I had never thought of asking you what other duties you have, because it just dawned on me as you guys, I see you guys only for my little slice. So I think we don't get enough exposure of the other things that you guys are involved with, which I think is good and appropriate for the public to know. So Lamont, you're an outreach for us, but for others? That's what I did not know.
Yeah, but to save time and be concise, why don't we, for the next meeting, we'll just put on the agenda, and I'd be glad to give an overview of all that, just so that we stick in, follow in line with the agenda. But yep, I'll make sure to put that in an agenda item for next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave you out since I had primed Carla with that. Okay, thank you. Which brings us back to then the report. Any questions? Anybody? Questions, clarifications from HRO? Okay, if there's none, let's go ahead with number 6, which is the business we've had pending for a while, and we'll start with the one that actually has been on the table for quite a while. So this is TASER report U19-579. For that, we have members of the police department. Traditionally, they lead the presentation of the TASER usage, and then we have a discussion. And so today, Deputy Chief Searles is presenting. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. As promised, I'm here. I was not hospitalized, which was the reason I said I wouldn't be here, but it wasn't for the good try of Mother Nature. A bit of a cold, so I apologize if I cough during this presentation. Okay, so Mr. Allegretti asked for this case to come back for full consideration. So I'll go ahead and provide you with a brief synopsis. I'm sure you're aware of this case, and then we'll watch some videos and we'll move on to questions if you have any. On February 6th, 2019, at approximately 11:19 p.m., Urbana police officers were dispatched to a report of a physical domestic at a convenience store. Officers were provided with a specific description of the man and woman involved. Officers arrived and located both subjects nearby. Officers stopped the couple and began discussing the incident with them. Officers soon learned that the female was wanted on a warrant. The female was arrested. As the arrest was taking place, a male announced that if the female was going to jail, he was too. The male then shoved a police officer. Officers grappled with the male to effect an arrest. During the arrest, a TASER officer discharged his TASER against the male in his midsection, but due to a limited spread of the probes, no reaction was observed. The officer then completed a drive-stun follow-up to enact neuromuscular incapacitation, or NMI. After the arrest, the male arrested threatened officers and their families with physical harm and rape. The male arrestee was taken to the county jail and charged with aggravated battery to a police officer and intimidation. So there's a total of 5 videos. Let's see if I can control the screen here. Let's see. I'm not sure that I have control of the screen. Is that something you can give me, Ricardo?
Let me double check. Normally Ibrahim would, but I can share screen, but I am not the owner. So let me just get Ibrahim to give you the co-share.
So while he's doing that, let me give you a brief description of the video. The first video is from a looks to be a squad car. Yeah, it was a squad car. And quite frankly, there's not much you can see. There's just some rain on the windshield. The second video is and this was the video that was kind of one of the reasons this has been brought back, was a body camera video from a supervisor doing a post-arrest interview of the arrestee at the county jail. That's about 90 seconds long, and I will show you that. The next is a video from the TASER camera. That doesn't show a ton, mostly clothing, and you can hear some things. Sorry, this report's kind of long. The next video is from a squad car. It's kind of far away. You can see a little bit of what happens. There's about a 20-second clip that's sort of pertinent to this. Otherwise, it's just a lot of just extraneous stuff. And then there's a fifth video. It's a squad car, and that's got a fairly close-up view. You've seen that before. So let's see if I can.
We're able to now.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. So the first video that I'm going to play is, I believe this is the squad car video with the close-up view.
That's where you are. She ain't got no damn wood. I'm going to get You got what you wanted. I know. I always do what I want, bitch. Okay. So took care of it. That's like shit.
Right. Let's see. The next
Video 1, just for reference as we keep
Sure.
going.
The next is, I believe this is another, I'm sorry, this is not the one I meant to play. I meant to play this one towards the end.
Hands right back. I'm so sorry. Hope y'all go to hell with my mama. You got what you wanted. I know. I always do what I want, bitch. Okay. So took care of it. That's like shit. Oh, there. Yeah, you're smelling. The dirt. Baby, you ain't got no one. They fuck with it. There you go.
All right.
No, that was the taser cam, right?
That was the TASER cam. So these other two videos, I was poking around, and my IT skills aren't great. So I don't have redacted copies for you, but I can show you the parts that I think are pertinent. The unredacted copies, I believe, are in the portal. So 2847. So this one is the one that I described as having a bunch of rain on the windshield. And this is the view. It's not great. Really, the best you can see is after they've arrested the subject, bringing him back. So there's essentially nothing that can be seen of the incident in question here. So there's this one. It's 56 minutes long. I'm not going to play 56 minutes for you. And then
Officer Searles, is it so they were out for about an hour before the taser incident, or?
no, that's just the link to the video. So like in this case, they transported him, so it's got the transport time and things like that in there. So
Approximately how long were they out on the call? Do you know? Was it so it sounds like maybe like 20 minutes, half hour?
How long did it take for them to handle the call?
No, I mean from the time they arrive until we see the taser incident, how long were they out?
Okay, so we get the call at 11:15. I'm sorry, it occurs according to the report at about 11:15. It's reported at 11:18. We're dispatched at 11:19. We arrive at 11:22. And the arrest time is 11:36. So 14 minutes.
14, okay.
So then the next video, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 1, is this one. This is another squad car video. I described this one as sort of having a faraway view. This one's 54 minutes long. The part you care about is about the next 30 seconds.
Hey, right now, it's showing so good.
So there's that one, and then the last one, which is the one that's has been causing us some problems, is it was this one. No, sorry, picked the wrong one. This one. This is from a body camera from a supervisor.
I'm Sergeant from the Ramada Police Department. So you know our conversation is going to be audio and video recorded from our body camera, right? So I understand that the officers out there deployed a taser. Is that correct? Do you know why you got tased? Because you pushed the officer. And I'm not here to judge you or question why you do, but do you think that was a right move to make? Okay. All right, then. So, but having said that, since you admitted that you pushed the officer, do you understand why they tased you? Okay. Well, because two things really. I mean, we don't want our officers to get hurt, and we don't want you to get hurt. And the taser is, in that scenario, is probably the safest way to go about things. Because the taser lasts for a short amount of time, sends an electrical current to your hand. Well, I guess luckily for you, had that big coat on, because that's probably what saved the probes from making contact with you all the way. But I guess you did dry stun you, is that correct? You probably felt that. Okay. But as long as you understand why you got tased, that's all. You're not injured in any way or anything like that. Okay. All right. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, that is, let me turn off the screen share. That is what I've got for you. Any questions?
The summary for me, it takes 2 minutes from the call domestic case for the officers to arrive, and then about 14 minutes later is when the taser is discharged. He gets then treated or processed. I think the rule is that they're supposed to be treated or medically seen, and then he gets taken to the county jail. That's the sequence, if I'm extracting this correctly. If that holds, then I guess this is a time for me just to clarify. There are 10 items in the open case taser holder. And then one item in the closed item one, in the closed taser folder. And I just want to point out that we keep everything from, since a little while over the last year, been more systematic about having every item related to a case in the folder. And in this case, I think that's what the open taser folder has, because it has documents, police report, and then the videos, the redacted ones and the unredacted ones. Just want to make sure that we're all seeing the same thing.
Yeah, Ricardo, if I might, one of the things that I would encourage either you or other members of the CPRB to do is have some conversations with Lieutenant Coker about expectations. I know that things have shifted over time, and that's fine, but I just don't want there to be any confusion about what the expectations are, and I don't want you to be confused about what we're able to do. There's some things that we are able to do and some things that we're not. So for example, if you want us to start searching at other agencies, that becomes problematic. So I just point out the fact that I think it would be prudent for at least you to have a sit down with Lieutenant Coker.
Officer Searles, or sorry, Ricardo.
Yes, go ahead.
So under 304.4 of the TASER policy manual, it says a verbal warning of the intended use should precede its application. There's some exceptions to that. But the fact that the verbal or other warning was given or the reasons it was not given should be documented. I didn't see that in the TASER usage report for this case. Is there an explanation for why that happened? Because based on the video one that I saw, the officer put his hand out first. The subject swipes it away. He then proceeds to back up, and then you see another officer who had not been dealing with the subject. The sergeant who had been dealing with him said he had been compliant from the get-go. And we don't get a verbal warning. We just get the taser, 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 and he immediately starts to discharge it. So it seems like, to me, there was no verbal warning, and that for a person who was otherwise being compliant, that should have been done here. And I'm also wondering why it wasn't documented as to why he didn't do that.
The second question, I don't have an answer for. The first question, I disagree with your assessment that he was cooperative. They describe him as being confrontational and belligerent. And so with respect to the fact that you believe that a verbal warning should proceed, if somebody pushes me, I don't have to provide a verbal warning before I employ force. That is when feasible, not at all times. So I guess I can answer half your question.
But he didn't really push him. He swatted his hand away.
Well, when
another officer, but then another
sergeant interviewed him, he said he pushed him.
The sergeant, well, that was after the fact, and he also asked him, you agree that you pushed him, and kind of assented to it. I mean, the video I think is.
No, he said, clear. Do you know why they tased him? He said, I pushed him.
But the video shows him swatting his hand away.
Okay.
Can we check that first video one more time, Rich? Is that possible for us to just briefly look at that first squad car that you showed us?
Sure. I'd be more than happy to play the videos again. The offender said he pushed him, and the officer said he pushed him. So I don't think there's a question about whether or not the officer was pushed. Which video would you like to see?
It was the first squad car footage.
The first squad car footage.
Yeah, you said there were 5 videos, and I think I'm referring to the first one that you showed us.
Okay.
It seemed like that one had the clearest.
The close-up view from the squad car?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for one.
Find the right video here real quick. Okay.
where you are. You ain't got no damn what. I'm going to get You got what you wanted. I know all the good I want, bitch. Okay.
He clearly swipes. I think classifying as a push, I think is a stretch. And then he does step back. Also, the sergeant, he does include in his report, who had been out with him, he appeared intoxicated as well. I think that my concern is the policy. There should have been some reason why we should have gotten an explanation from why the other officer displayed without giving a warning and then pulled the trigger so fast, especially with 4 other officers on scene. That's my concern. Whether the policy would allow him to use it, sure. I guess it could have been used. It seems like if he had displayed it and said, if you don't cut it out, because he's obviously upset about the other woman or the woman getting taken into jail. It seems like a display or I'm going to tase you if you don't stop may have prevented him from getting tased at all.
Sure, absolutely. I believe this was a reasonable use of the taser. I think under a Graham v. Connor analysis, this would be deemed as appropriate. Our internal use of force committee deemed it appropriate. So I understand your point, but I disagree with you. I understand that it is possible that we could have done something else, but that's not what happened in this case. Did you have something to say, Mr. Wesner? I saw you flip your camera on.
And only if I may, Mr. Chair, just kind of offer just a little bit of brief commentary, I guess, about the nature of the discussion.
Yes, please.
And I get that, in previous meetings, there's been some discussions about the extent of how the CPRB is to handle taser incidents. And certainly understand that, we want to talk about what we see and, potential impacts of that. But again, if you look at what is required, in the code, it's not so much a discussion centered on was there or wasn't there a violation of the policy. The discussion really centers on, after reviews, is should there be changes to the policy to account for something or to accommodate something that may be missing, maybe slightly deficient. So again, Mr. Algaretti, I appreciate, the extent of the conversation in terms of the incidents itself, but I don't want to lose focus of the real concept for taser reviews, which is, once we've reviewed things, should there be an amendment to the policy or a recommendation for some change to the policy, not so much the idea of was there or wasn't there a violation of the underlying policy. I think that's for the police department to determine.
And if UPTV could promote Katrina, she's here. We just got an email from her.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, we don't vote up or vote down whether any individual use is appropriate or not. But we have to discuss the incidences as they come in. I'm just wondering if a change to the policy of requiring a verbal warning, requiring the verbal warning or shall proceed and then keep in the exceptions, does this situation then look different? I guess I think a shall use a verbal warning unless the circumstances are not practical. Sorry, I think that still provides a lot of leeway for an officer to deploy it if he needs to. in a circumstance where you've got a call out for a domestic like this, where there's 2 squads, I think at least 3 or 4 other officers. I think a verbal warning may have caused a different outcome here, or at least less pain for everyone involved.
Mr. Algrady, I understand your point. And if you've got something that you'd like the chief to take a look at in terms of policy, I'm sure he'd be happy to take a look at.
Sure.
I'll interject just that I think the comment of to what extent, what is our responsibility? I think we've tossed it back and forth, and I think we've heard the point from Dave Wesner. And I think that's where we've concluded that that's where we're at. The difficulty in making a policy change or recommendation is that the only way to arrive at that point would be to consider what actually happened and did policy actually cover the situation? Because if it didn't, that's when we would recommend the change. But in order to get to that point, we have to ascertain what happened first. And so I appreciate both in the intention of the comment and then where we would be if there was a proposal to change policy. The thing that gets me out of this particular case, and as I watched it in preparation, I had remembered that there was actually a longer time there in the discussion after the officers arrived. I understand that 14 minutes can be a very long time when you have police officers in front of your house. I live on Main and I often see the lights. And so, by the time all the neighbors call each other to find out what happened, it feels like a long time, but the clock is actually not saying that much. In this case, for me though, the 14 minutes of having somebody in front of you talking and then eventually coming to a firing of a taser, deployment we call it, but looks like a gun, is something that I don't have any need for more information in this case. That is, we have lousy cameras, we have lousy sound, we have rain, we have all that stuff, but we have enough to at least pretty much follow along what went on. The reports are sometimes dry, but the video really helps me clarify what went on. So in taking the instruction for me of do we need to change the policy is the ultimate question here. And we don't have any more information that says it didn't fit or it didn't. Many of these calls, I think with police, we don't know. I mean, the officer has to make a decision. And sometimes it's a life and death decision. Arguing with somebody, I think that one of the reports of the police, I think it was the sergeant, they'd been talking to him for a while, and I don't know at what point it becomes physical enough to draw any kind of force. But I think the intention at the beginning of this exchange, and I would say probably one of the options is to step back from the person so that there is no more escalation. If I'm close enough or I want to force something, then I will approach a person. But if I can just take a step back for a second, I believe it doesn't allow for something. So damaging somebody, whether it's a police officer or a citizen, requires contact. And if there is no possibility for contact because you've taken a step back, then there isn't necessarily, there isn't by definition then an opportunity to cause harm unless there is a weapon involved. So I want to say that in generalities because ultimately in the case, if he wanted to be arrested and you want to arrest them, then it requires getting close to them. But when it comes to escalation, there's a general, for me, requirement that they get close to each other or you use a weapon. Coming back then to the point of why we've regathered on this case, is there a proposal for any policy change on this case?
So I would propose that a verbal warning shall precede the application, leaving in the otherwise endangering the safety or it's not practicable. And then I would also include a shall display, and then I think there should be some exception language similar to the verbal warning to mandate it unless it would otherwise endanger safety or it's not practical. Those, I think, requiring those things to be done, I think should be done. I mean, as far as de-escalating, that would go along the lines of that. And then the policy should remain the same about documenting why those things weren't done. It's an internal policy. What happens when someone doesn't follow it? When there's no penalty, maybe there needs to just be a sit down or a reprimand or whatever, a censure. I don't know what the internal.
Yeah. As y'all were discussing it, I actually just sent out an email to our TASER coordinators to review the policy on this particular issue. So we will begin addressing it in that regard also.
Thank you. So as Mr. Allegretti proposes a shall there, I'd just like to hear from the officers I don't know if it's necessarily hypothetical, but are there any problems with requiring a verbal warning? Just off the cuff, we can review later and specify it, but I'm trying to think, is there any situation that you have in your experience that says if I had issued the warning, things would have gotten worse or there would have been something X?
Carlo, the exception language would still remain. So, there's, not to talk out of line, but I'm sure Officer Strolls could tell us in a number of situations where it wouldn't make sense. But.
Yeah, actually, given those exceptions, I'm sorry.
Mr. Allegretti is on point. Yeah, I could come up with, you take one situation and you change a couple of variables, and of course, the totality completely changes. So, one of the things when you're writing policies, always and never are not great words to use. There's always exceptions. Mr. Allegretti is proposing sort of I guess we'll say a philosophical way to sort of proceed with the use and display of a TASER in that shall requirement is in there. So, one of the things that I would like to do is if you just want to type out a quick email, send it to me, I'll get it to the chief, or if you want to send it directly to the chief, we'll take a look at that language and the totality of the policy. The policy's pages long. We're going to have to sort of, reconcile it with other policies we have, or use of force policy, and so, it might be one of those changes that we just need to make. It might be one of the ones where we say, maybe we don't use language as strong and as shall, and maybe we say it's encouraged, recommended. I don't know, something. But ultimately, that is a decision that the chief is going to own. But I understand Mr. Allegretti's point.
It kind of just switches it. The default should be, the officer needs to be thinking, I'm going to tell this guy I'm going to use the TASER. I'm going to show it to him first, as opposed to not having to do that. So the default is I need to do these things unless, and I don't think the shall is as strong when we have these exceptions accounting for endangering safety and not practical. So it's, it's not a shall when you have that anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. The exceptions do do leave some side doors pretty open for some real life variables. One of the things that I've done in the past on certain incidents, and not with a taser, just in general, is, sometimes you can get great compliance by threatening to use force. There's been a number of times where, if you don't put your hands behind your back, I'm going to pepper spray you, right? Sometimes that works. Sometimes it just makes the fight worse because they see it coming. So one of the things that we oftentimes don't like to do is dictate tactics to officers because every situation is different. But to Mr. Allegretti's point, some of these exceptions are fairly broad. So my recommendation from the board would be, if there's something you're interested in, put it in writing. We'll take a look at it, and it might be one of those changes that we need to employ, and it might make sense. But as for sort of the second half with respect to the, okay, but you didn't document it part, I agree. And like I said, I just sent out an email to the TASER coordinators. This is something we need to review.
Sounds good. Rich, I'm recalling, we were late on reporting. When we wrote the policy, we said we'd come back in a year. We eventually wrote that report. And I mean, I'd like to say that we did such a fine job that there were no changes needed, which is essentially what we wrote in the report. We're doing fine with what we wrote. And while I like to take credit for it, ultimately, I'm never comfortable with saying we were so good that we ran 3 years on what we wrote and everything worked out. So I like the fact that if we send it, the group will reconsider if there's anything else. So related to that, and I think you are correct with Corey, we do need to talk about expectations, both on the documenting and then on presentations. We just need to see him more, and so we can get those expectations ready. Because at our last meeting, we agreed here that we should have a check on the TASER usage every quarter so that we don't have anything accumulate.
Yeah. Two points, if I may. The first is, I would ask that the TASER, the meeting set aside for TASER reviews are supposed to be quarterly. What I'd ask is some pretty specific communication with Lieutenant Coker so he knows precisely when that's going to happen. I don't want the time to get screwed up with Lieutenant Coker like it did with me in the last meeting. So I don't want him to start off on a bad foot and get crossways with you. The other point, and this is probably most useful for the newer members and not at all useful for Ricardo, because I recall sort of thinking out loud when we first started this process. The process that we have given the CPRB as it relates to TASER review is completely and totally made up. Anywhere does it delineate what the process looks like. If you don't want the process to be something like this, if you find that portions of the presentation are a waste of your time or whatever, you can do something different. I literally just said, okay, for the first one of these, I don't know what I'm doing, so I guess I'll provide a summary and I guess we'll watch some videos, and we just kind of winged it. So with Lieutenant Coker, it provides an opportunity to, if there's something that the board wants to do and tweak, this gives you an opportunity to do it. I just wanted to say that and just sort of put that out there for you guys and gals.
Okay. Thank you. It's true. We started going on tradition without it really being any reason for the tradition. So you're right.
Having access to the videos and the reports beforehand, I think, is the most important, just so that we can look at it beforehand. And then,
oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean, just preparing for this one case, it's 23 pages.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's not, yeah.
It's real time, and it's time that, I mean, you guys are all volunteers, and I'm sure this takes up a lot of your time. So I want to be respectful of your time, and I want you to get the information that you need in a professional, succinct package that provides you with the information.
And as we've had now a stable board for a while, we all know then what to expect, and we look for it and then call each other when something might be missing. But in this case, I think we reconsidering it has caused it so that the folder is complete and we can all examine all the information that's related. So Thank you, everyone. If there's no other questions or comments, I think we can move from this. Is that okay?
If you don't mind, I'm going to excuse myself unless somebody else has questions for me or needs me to stick around.
Actually, I do have one request, and that's on the agenda. If you look at it, you're Lieutenant Coker's boss. So if he has a copy, we will be deciding at the end of the meeting our meeting dates for next year. Either option 1, 2, or 3. One of them will become true, and therefore those are the meetings that for sure we'd like Lieutenant Coker and/or, because you guys designate sometimes somebody different, just to cover the meeting, because it's good relationship to have somebody to answer questions for us as we get there.
I completely agree. What I would tell you is you need not form your schedule based off of staff schedule. If you prefer one schedule over the next, choose that one. We'll make sure it's taken care of.
Thank you very much. All right.
Okay. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night and great holiday for everybody that leaves us right now. We'll stay here and work because we like it. All right, everybody. So welcome, Katrina.
Hello.
Good to see you. Your name. It's good to check in with everybody, and we all know where everybody is. So we knew you'd be coming a little bit late. So we've done up to 6A on the agenda. We have 4 more quick reports on old business. So we'll go through them, and I'm open to adding anything else that is not binding, because the decisions have to be put on the agenda, anything that requires a large decision. So anyway, in 6B, status of complaints and appeals. Carla, I think you mentioned we had one new one. And in your report, you actually also mentioned something that I think is really good progress. We're starting to use the portal for more than just the complaints and appeals. So I hope that this means that as we have a need for information, and especially because Open Meetings Act is so hard on us having dialogue, most of the stuff that we need is going to be here, and we'll be uploading it as we can. So status of complaints and appeals, Carla, the reminder is we have 1.
We have 2 appeals hearings. We had 1 complaint come in, and it was not under our jurisdiction. And so it's in the portal for your review, but there was no action taken on it. As far as appeals, we've had 2 appeal hearings, and we've completed 5 of the appeals through to decision. And our December 10th was canceled. And so we're going to restart rescheduling appeals hearings so that we can continue on the path that we were on. And once we have our dates, then what I will do is I will schedule appeals on the off dates so that we don't bombard the board members with having meetings and appeal hearings in 1 month.
Thank you. Related to that, and as to what's in the folder, the complaint is there. We've had designations of this type sometimes, and I learned and clarified this. Whenever something comes up to the CPRB, then we will treat it until we can. The decisions for cases that come to CRB complaints is left up to the CPRB first. But in this case, you will see that where the information had to be put forward. I also want to point out in the portal now on the folder called CPRB documents, all those are TASER. Right now, the folder doesn't have a subfolder that says TASER information, but right now under the CPRB folder, under CPRB cases, is all the information related to tasers. That includes the ordinance, that includes the order of presentation that Rich just pointed out. And I want to make sure that you guys know that, because sometimes it's hard to see from the titles in the portal. But I find it now beneficial to be having that set. Thank you. So that's the status of complaints, and appeals will be then coming back, hopefully, well, we'll know in January whether, one, we have dates, and whether it's feasible given the person to put in the complaint and or an appeal. So we'll come back to that. Updates on augmenting the CPRB procedures manual. We have discussed before that that we have learned enough now to make some changes. We did a quick draft of that, but from here until January, we'll be holding meetings. I started with Tony Allegretti, because he had been making some changes or some suggestions on the procedures manual. But we're actually going a little bit further now to go into what we call bucket 3. That is, when we had hearings exactly a year ago, and we did a bucket 3, was really the structure and the changes to the ordinance. So the rules that we use, the procedures manual that we use, is to be consistent with what the ordinance says. So if we have changes to the ordinance, we'll still have to come back and make changes to the procedures. So for right now, we're holding steady on procedures, but we're open to recommendations to change them, because some of them may imply or force even that we change the ordinance, and that's why we're doing. So I've started with Tony Allegretti. I welcome each one of you. If it's time, we'll come back to you with some ideas. I'll be also asking, I mentioned to the deputy chief that we're now working on that section. We're not going to have hearings, and it's an opportunity to use the time productively. And obviously also with Carla to do. So those meetings hopefully will be held in January, but we have to keep the spirit of the Open Meetings Act, which means that 3 of us can't meet. So we can do it one by one, well, in twos, and then bring up whatever decisions have to be made, of course, here to this meeting. So that's the update from me on 6C. Any questions? Okay, 6D. This is Carla and Colin.
I don't currently have any updates since the last time I shared with you that we've given the information to our marketing person, and she's going to be putting together a brochure for the CPRB so that we can expand some of the information. But Mr. Wilson's updates of the card flyer, yeah, those are ready and just need to be printed. And she's going to help me get those printed. I haven't had time to revisit that at this time, but that is on my to-do list.
Are those going to be printed? I guess from the discussions, I was under the impression that we had gotten ready changes to the brochure to put it in line with the policy changes from the city, so that we're not including the notary requirements among a couple of just changes like that. So we were ready to go there, but I thought we had decided. I had understood that we were going to hold on this because we needed to update the brochure. It sounded like I was told that we needed to update the brochure to make it more public friendly, to make it more. Is that not the case? I guess I'm confused.
No, that's what I mean by we've discussed, she and I, of making it a trifold where it has more information that's user friendly, more aesthetically pleasing, to make it a document that people will pick up and want to utilize. Yours, she did do minor updates, and those were just, in design, not in information. We were holding those until she was able to get the information she needed for the brochure. They are ready to print, but if you would prefer the trifold brochure versus the card, you'll have that option.
Yeah, I guess I'm feeling a little bit confused then. So it sounds like the trifold, would we be able to put maybe more in there? This is the first time hearing about this. So we'd be able to put more in there, maybe make it nicer to look at. Is that kind of the idea?
It's going to be, yes.
And that would be replacing sort of the single back, front and back that we.
It can. What I did was I asked her if she could make it look more pleasing, more to the eye, more eye-catching, that kind of thing. But yours is there as the option based on if you guys want to go with that. But I was holding off to give you the option.
Yeah, it would be nice to look at both, and having both of them obviously just be better. Sure. So, okay. Yeah, I know we've gotten contacted by Councilwoman Grace Wilkin, and she had been pushed from her constituents too, asking, when can we get this updated? And so and obviously everybody knows this takes time. And so did Bridget maybe give an idea for when her next update would be?
Well,
when can we expect?
I don't have that. That's what I said. I have to follow up with her again, because again, I had other things I had to do that were more pressing. So I had to put that on the back burner.
Too, so I know people are going to be hopefully they'll be seeing their families and not, doing too much office work in the next, week or so. So
nope, we're still there.
Yeah.
Right. And we say then that we don't have to wait till the next meeting to start seeing, whenever she gets to it, circulate it over email.
Yeah.
I would show it to you guys.
All right, because it doesn't make sense to me to wait for a formal meeting to say this is how we want to look. I mean, it's not a major decision. It is a decision. It is a discussion we've been having for a while. But let me piggyback onto that, because I think we have not asked for any funding for the things that we're doing. We are asking that some reprints and changes get made. One thing that has come up to me a couple of times has been the need of having a card, a business card, or business card size for me to leave and say, yes, I am a live member of the CPRB, and I want you to let me know if you have any feedback on police matters. We have not been to too many places, in the public, but it looks like we're talking about going, and looking for invitations to present. And it seems to me like we're in a very electronic world, but when I get into public situations and I've got 3 people in front of me, I give them each a card to call me back, and then I concentrate on the one that I can, that wants to hang around and talk. But I've given somebody the opportunity then to look, to look me up, to find me easily. What do you guys think about having business cards with the CPRB designation that you could use?
Doesn't seem like a bad idea, as long as it's not too costly. I don't know what our budget really is.
We haven't had a budget, and that's
maybe it doesn't need to be individualized. Maybe it can just be for all of us, so that that way it's not, it's not too, then maybe that would be cheaper, because then we're not printing 5 different cards and someone else comes on another one for that.
Well, if to print 100 of them is what, $20? Or if you get them online with a special Vista print, whatever, you end up with.
Sure.
It's not, for me, cost in this case is not that. It's the sweat cost of designing it. And so if we're going to put something together as a brochure and as a one-pager, everything has been made nice already. It's a matter of rearranging the elements. So if you guys don't want them, that's okay. but I think it would be good, and we need visibility out in the community. We need for people to know who we are, what we do, and have it be an option. If they choose not to contact or not to report or give feedback on police, I'm okay with, but I still feel like we're not quite out there enough. And that's why I'm asking you for your pictures. Send me a picture. Katrina, I need you in a picture.
Okay, I'll send you one.
Well, thank
I'm
you
really
very much.
tired
All right.
today. That's why my video's off. I'm really tired.
Excellent. That's okay.
If we do have a business card, if we
Yeah.
do have a business card and it's like Tony said, you know, just one standard business card, whose contact information would be on that card? Since there's a whole, you know, we are a group, who would they reach out to if we handed them this card?
Probably the HRO.
Does that make sense? Like if hypothetically, if we had Tony's name on it, but I gave it out at something, then they would expect when they call for me to answer the phone or for me to answer the email. But if we have one standard, that, you know, that's what I'm asking.
It would probably have the HRO at Illinois.Urbana.us and so on. And then, so if you have a pen hand, you could write, if you wanted to, you could write your email on it too, I suppose. But it would probably just have the office contact information. Am I understanding right, Ricardo?
Yeah, but let me, I mean, I don't normally carry, you know, with 5 different hats, 5 business cards. But in this particular case, I would argue that we should each have our contact info for the reason of rapport. You don't normally want to give away or be, you know, there's a lot of people that avoid confrontation, and they will only tell you their story when they know you enough to do it. Actually, that goes against what my linguistic professor used to teach me, but on first encounter, people will tell you something that they would never tell somebody that they know. And I've seen that to be true, except that for a police filing, I think that it requires a little bit of bridge building, trust building. So if I go visit somebody's congregation, I want to give everybody there the opportunity to contact me directly, because I saw you there and I wanted to tell you about, and then I'd have to guide them to Carla to say, and this is the formal way you can do it, but go ahead and share with me. And that requires then a personal contact. So
you're also bringing up something else, Ricardo, that just came to mind. We've been having people asking us how they can contact us. I think our names and emails have been removed actually from the CPRB, the city website. And I think we'd been asking about having those put back on, but I haven't heard anything there yet.
You want to check on, report back on that? I think Lamont was on that, but I don't know where we are.
So that is a silly policy that has changed. So they won't go back. They did that for all boards and commissions kind of as a safety measure and to be able to monitor the information that's coming in. So those changes were made to all of the city boards and commissions on the website.
Okay. So they're no longer.
But isn't there a document? There's a PDF document, correct? With the information on it.
Is there?
That's in the document list.
Yeah, there's information within the
So
website. They have
there.
to search, right? It just doesn't appear on the cover anymore. Like
It's
that
not a live
information-
link, but it is
Right.
there.
Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm seeing that now. Like it's the first under staff support. It's the first PDF there. It's got all of our emails there. Okay. So it sounds like citywide they're just changing how they're doing that altogether. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And we've chosen emails that make us accessible, but not, well, it makes it easier to update, that's for sure, because then you just change the PDF. You don't have to change the, let's see.
So I think that's all we've got for outreach. I'll be looking to hear back hopefully from our graphic artist soon, and Carl will pass that on to me and everybody when they're ready, I suppose. And then we'll decide, once we have the two formats, we'll decide what to do and how to proceed. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I was just checking the boards. We have more information on us than it looks like several of the other boards. Right now, I'm looking at the Cunningham Township one. They don't have a listing. Oh, they have the staff. But then I don't know who else is on the board. So anyway, thank you. Thank you very much, Carla, Lamond on it. That would take us then to finish 6D. We go to 6E, which is a CPRB training. Carla reported on earlier tonight of the change. She put it all up in the CPRB portal, what we should have been trained on. But I'd like to make sure, as members of the board, you don't know everything that you're supposed to be trained on, and you wouldn't know if there's anything missing in the folder because you haven't been through it. As Carla and I talked, let's put everything that you're supposed to know when so that when anyone comes to the board, they know what's there. And they say, this is what I'm responsible for. This is my orientation. And yes, a member of the staff follows up with them, make sure that they saw them and that they're trained enough. But I want to get your feedback onto how well you feel prepped, because the only thing missing that I could come up with before was that as far as I know, I'm the only one who's done ride-alongs. And that's been early. It's been at least a couple of years that I have not done a ride-along. And the experience was very good and positive for me, because I don't know Urbana. I did not know Urbana through the eyes of a patrol car. If you'll digest that for a second, the ride-along gives us a perspective of Urbana, whether it's a boring night, which we hope they are. But now I've been to domestic cases. I've been to parties that the students have, and you have the drunk kids on the street. I've been to robbery, a possible person with a gun at this rentals, warehouse kind of stuff. That was my scariest moment, because I was riding with a woman police officer, and when we drove up, she said, stay in the car. She pulled out her weapon, and the only lights were a little tiny thing that she had, and then the car things. But the report clearly was said somebody's armed. And I said, wow, she's really putting herself out there. When I later asked her what happened, she said, well, we've already called it in. There will be backup eventually, but it's not the kind of thing you want to wait around for. And it made me realize how hard that is, to say, I'm just going to go out there in the dark by yourself in a very large place. What's it called? No, where you store things, storage units. So anyway, so I highly recommend it. We now have the phone number, and Carla's going to email it to us. Please schedule it. I realize that if you're COVID, well, we're all COVID adverse, but if you're worried about COVID, you are riding in a car with somebody. So if that prevents you from it because of whatever situation you have, I understand that. But otherwise, try to do it. It's really helpful. And it is part of our training. So that's the part that I am concerned about. Anything else related to training? How do you guys feel? I know
and that was the number Carla gave us at the beginning, right? That was to contact Sergeant Colby Wright.
Yep.
And that was 384-2. What was the?
I'm doing an email right now, and I'm sending it to the commission, to the board members and it'll have Sergeant Wright's information in it, and the desk's information.
And so it's sort of up to us to sort of reach out and then sort of schedule it that way.
Yeah.
You can, yes.
Individually, because it depends on the schedule. One of the questions that I was asked more than once was, what kind of shift do I want to see? And During the day, it's a little bit more boring, I was told. But if you pick a weekend, there will be more happening. And as you know, this town runs in step with the university. The other thing I learned when requesting was during the summer, the hotter it is, the more action there will be. And so I rode one in the summer and one in the cold. I don't remember a third one, but a variety of it, because otherwise it's a good opportunity if you want a quiet night to talk to the officers as they move around. But stuff happens in this town at night when students are in town, just because it causes more movement.
Ricardo, is the ride along? So we're in there for the full shift. Is that what you're? Or is it only a few hours, or is it?
Sergeant Wright would probably update.
And like, what did you do? Did you do like?
Yeah, I did a full shift. I did it 3 to 4 hours. I actually did it when my family was going to bed. I think I checked in like at 9. And then I stayed there for 3 hours, a late Friday night kind of deal. It was at my convenience, but I very much chose so that my family wouldn't feel the lack of presence, but that there might be more things going on. I feel like I'm seriously, I had never seen Urbana at night like that. And it changed me. It changed of what I believe what goes on in town. Not because it's so bad. On the contrary, it also showed me how little goes on. We're a one Walmart town, and all these police officers have to talk to each other. But honestly, we are a nice, boring town when it comes to most of this stuff. So I understand that there's been a lot more gun use and whatever else. The last year has been quite hard, whatever. You were never exposed yourself, but as you sit in that patrol car and you see the information that's coming to the officers as you hear the radio, it's important to get that feel. And then I learned another thing, which you might want to triangulate because things have changed, and when I sign up, I'll probably change my mind. But I learned that I better be careful, not when an officer is present, because I'll behave anyway, but near a patrol car. Those cars have big ears and big cameras. So I was just impressed. So anyway, we're good. All right. So ride-alongs, spend those hours. The sergeant can tell you what the minimum time is. We're required to do a ride-along once a year. I think it says maybe twice, but it doesn't have to be a long time commitment. You've got little kids, and I understand. But my little kid doesn't go to bed till midnight, so now, but at the time he was young. All right. That's 6C CPRB training. Anything else on the previous points? All right. So to finish off, I want to make sure. Oh, yeah, no. We got 7 new business. This is a decision that I hope you guys had a little bit of time to just look at this, to choose what are the options. The parameters of those options have to do with this. We, a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, we talked about the requirement is that we meet once a quarter. We changed to monthly a couple of years back when we were very busy and we were trying to sort things. And then for us, we looked at this and said, well, partially driven by me, but in agreement with you guys, I said, how about if I ask you 6 hours a month? And so if this meeting lasts 3 hours, then I can ask for one more hearing, 3 hours, so that we can be advancing on our hearings. So that's why I asked you and we said, let's have a regular meeting every other month. That way we can use our hours to get through all the hearings that we have to do. And so when you look at the options, what you're looking at is, it depends when you start the year. If we want to start in January as our first meeting month, then we can do that with every other month. So option 2 has that included. We start in January, have a regular meeting. February would be hearings, and March would be another regular meeting, and so on. Option 2 takes away December. Here we are right before Christmas meeting, and that one would cut out December. Option 3 says, well, we met in December. We don't need to meet in January. Let's start in February, but if we do every other month, that's going to include December. So that's option 3. Option 1, I forget the logic, Carla, but as you can see, it starts in February, in January, February, and then we skip, and then we go into a skip pattern. So that's the logic of the 3 options. We don't have to stay with any. This is a suggestion. Lamont sent it out to us a couple of weeks back for us to start seeing. But it's time that we make a decision so that all the calendars get done right. Both all the logistics, the cameras, and your Friday night dates. Actually, no, these are Wednesdays. So, as you know, the hearings are very much dependent on everybody's availability. So Carla works on those independently. So I'm open to discussion, but the way we could do it very easily is that we vote. Somebody makes a motion for option 1, 2, or 3, and we vote on it. If it gets approved by the majority, then that's what we try to do. But unanimous would be best.
Ricardo, the option one has 7. Is that an extra just in case, or what was it?
Mr. Allegretti, so when I made the calendar options, I wanted to make sure that even though there was an every other month vote, that you could look at 2 options that included January in case the board wanted to have a meeting in January. It's not a requirement. It just gives you 2 options that include the month of January, and then 3rd option that does not. So,
well, number 1 and number 3 are similar, except for adding a January option. A month, that's true. Yes, I see it now. Yeah. Thank you. Good logic. So I'm open for a motion so we can just do it.
Yeah, I think all of the options look good. It gives us time to get work done but continue to meet. So yeah, I guess I don't know how to pick between the 3. None of them seem better or worse than option 1 has more meetings, which jumps out at me, but I don't know that I don't know. I'm open for options, but they'll look good.
So you're open, Tony?
I would just
right?
say that the December 28th, I just feel like that just might be a tough meeting to pull off and really get anything done. So I'm speaking for myself, but I don't know how other people feel, but
it is a common time for travel.
It's just a really tough time of year, and I don't know the people's schedules.
Yeah, as you know, if we have enough, if we give the public enough time, we can change things later. But it'd be nice if we had already a calendar for the year and only deal with a small change rather than having to make it up as we go. Tony Rice.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for option 2. I'm in agreement with Christmas, New Year. That's a tough one. That's always going to be a tough one too.
Yeah. All right. Do I hear a second? Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any other comments? Katrina, you're the only one.
I have a new job that I started in October, and I don't get off until Wednesdays at 6. So I won't be able to join any meeting that we have that starts at 5:30 until 6 o'clock. That's the only conflict that I have. But other than that, I'm in agreement with that. I just won't be able to have join the meeting at 5:30.
Okay. Noted, and we will do our best to accommodate. Any more comments on this motion? Okay, the motion is that we take option 2. And so let's do a vote. Go ahead,
Mr.
Lamont.
Allegretti,
Yes.
Ms. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Mr. Diaz.
Yes,
The motion for calendar option 2 carries.
excellent. That's good. So we all agreed then, option 2 for various rights. So good placement. Thank you, Lamont, for Mr. Peppers for doing the whole processing. So we'll next be meeting then officially on January 26th. Is there any problem with changing it to 6 o'clock?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
I'll look into it for you, Mr. Diaz. For
Okay.
some reason, I thought I saw it in the ordinance, but I can double check it for you and get that information and forward it to you and Carla both.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If it's possible, then we're going to shoot for 6 o'clock. Not only is Katrina important, but the spirit of the whole meeting is really good when we're all together. So it's good then for us to try to do that. You'll investigate it. We'll decide and then publish it. But for right now, pencil it in then for January 26th at 5:30 or 6, but block it out for yourselves. Okay. We'll move on then to number 8. It's on the back of on the second face of your agenda, just to make sure. Any other announcements, comments, places you've been that relate to CPRB that would be good to talk to anybody, to everybody?
I'll throw this out. I got an email. I talked to Ricardo about this from the editor of the News Gazette. I don't know if anyone else was approached.
I was.
I did
Okay.
too, and I actually forgot all about that. Working.
I haven't responded. I know he wanted something by yesterday, but he emailed me on Monday, so I might still shoot something off. I didn't know if anyone else had responded, but I'm glad other people were contacted. I didn't. So anyway,
Actually, Tony, I wasn't.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get this either. What was the content?
They were looking for comment on the just recent uptick in use of firearms and just kind of that line of investigating it. There wasn't a whole lot.
And how it affects you, people around you.
They were looking specific. I think it was targeting us because we were CPRB. I mean, it's kind of really outside of our, somewhat out of our purview, I guess. But
I was gonna call him. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was gonna call him and ask whose opinion does he want? Because I wear different hats and we all wear different hats. So if he took our answer and published it, is he saying these are CPRB members and this is their thing?
Right.
Is he saying for me, is he saying this person that works for Unit 4? Is he saying this person? More questions?
Yeah, I was a little hesitant in firing off something. And when Ricardo said he didn't receive one, I was a little surprised because
Me as well.
But there's a there's a long answer and I guess a short answer to what he's looking for. And
right. But I didn't respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might still send something, better late than never, I guess. But
yeah, I'm gonna call him first.
Katrina, if you don't mind, if you let me know what you hear from him, I would be interested to hear.
How did he get my information? Which it is public. I'll shoot you
It's
an
on the
email. I'm gonna call him
website.
tomorrow. Because, yeah. Yeah.
I read the PDF. Colin, you want to report back on that experience you had a couple of months back?
For the was
For
it
the press.
WCA
Yeah.
reaching out? Yeah, WCAA was doing a set of pieces on violence, and they were interested to hear what our sort of stance on that. Not our stance, but they were looking to see our viewpoint on it and our perspective through the CPRB. And because there was an appeal hearing at the time for later that week. And at the time, I couldn't give them any information because the appeal hadn't been done yet. But then afterward, I sort of gave them a rough, an idea of what our decision was, and nothing that wasn't published, on our Zoom meeting anyway. So I don't know that they used any of that. I think they put out a piece just generally talking about the appeals we do, and I think they did mention that we were looking for volunteers for the board, so that's good. I haven't heard anybody reach out to us, but so that was good. That's about that's all I remember from that one.
That's good. Put in a plug for our 2 empty seats. As you know, I also don't mind walking with the press. I never know what they're going to publish. If it's TV, they'll talk to me for 5 minutes and use 5 seconds.
Right.
So I'd almost rather have somebody who's going to write something so that we can at least bounce it a little bit more. But the TV, they call me at 1, they want to meet at 2 because their pieces due at 4. It's going to show up at 5. I mean, they're so fast in their turnaround. Naturally, mistakes happen. So my approach is usually I'll write something down for them so that they have an opportunity to take it straight rather than not. But we're all free to talk to them. We only talk as members of the board when we have something that we have agreed on. But most of the times we are, and actually as a board, that's what we should do. But as individuals, members of the board, we can do whatever we want. I trust all of you to represent as well, but it's nice that we're in touch about it. So. Good. All right, Tony, thank you for bringing that up. It's cyclical. It'll come up again. We won't do that. I've been asked for comment recently on the plate readers. Before for Urbana, it got voted down in Urbana, and I guess this Tuesday it was going up in Champaign, and I gave my same comment basically. So I don't expect for it to be very public, but people are curious. We are in a little bit more information loops when it comes to police than others. So it's natural that they ask. All right. If that's okay, if no one has any more announcements, we'll go through 8B to remind everybody we still have 2 vacancies left. We should be putting out new materials so that we can show up in places and keep on recruiting. A friend of a friend is usually a good place to start. 8C, time commitments. We've already mentioned both the dates that we're talking about, and then my 6-hour goal. If you guys want more hours, I'm okay with it, but you'll have to tell me individually, and we've got work to do for more hours. But I want to respect that just because I know that you guys lead busy lives, and like Miss Katrina, many hats and hard to cover them. Have to wear them all at once. So thank you. Which does impact, and Lemon, then I think 8C and D, we can drop them from the next meeting then, because we've also set up then the suggestions for dealing with those meetings. 8E, last, I think we've decided then that January 26th is our next regular meeting. And it's nice to be, just have the information out as early as possible. We'll keep on polling with agenda a week before, and we should respond to Lamont at least to acknowledge, because I had that feeling after I didn't send my message that I'd written. It's just awful when somebody sends an email calling for input and nobody even says hi. It's just a bad feeling. So anyway, we should be more with each other. All right. That covers the basics of the agenda. We would normally have public input here. Let me see again if anybody's coming to the room. And I'm blind and trying to do, there it is, participants. We have 3 attendees. And so of those people attending the meetings as members of the public, if you want to speak at this point, you're invited to. We always save a public comment at the beginning and then a public comment at the end. And if you wish to speak, then raise your hand electronically and then you'll be switched onto the mic.
While we're waiting, if there's any public participation, while we're waiting, I'd like to just talk just briefly about the general procedure for how we handle taser cases, because I think it's been made pretty clear that we can't vote on whether procedure was followed, whether policy was followed, and that we're to recommend policy recommendations. But the ordinance says that our purpose is to provide a structure for discussion and for concerns for the public. So, we're taking public participation and we're having a discussion with the police department as following through their investigation. I think what we did today is good. Tony was asking questions and he was sort of asking, given that this is the policy, was that followed? I think it's important that we continue to ask those questions and just have, we need to have that discussion, I think, for the public. It's sort of, I think it would help frame the public's understanding of these taser incidents, and it gives them an opportunity to see, what other people in the public, because that's what we are, we're just civilians here. So it gives the public an opportunity to see what people from the public might think about this incident, and it gives them that sort of information. So I think we should keep doing what we're doing, even if we're not voting, a yes or no on each of these things. And, that could come back in the form of complaints. If we see something, if an incident happens, there might be complaints that arise from it, and we could interact with the public in that way. But I think we should continue the discussions as we're having. I think they're useful, if not quite what we thought they were. So thank you. That's all. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Colin. I think that your comment is in the good spirit of what we're trying to do. And so excellent. We can keep on doing. I had opened the document of what the procedure was to do a taser review, we called them before. And so we have changed things a little bit. I mean, the question of what was our ultimate purpose for them came up recently. Ultimately, the section, it says final deliberations of the board. That is, as we ask questions, the board shall deliberate the matters presented. At the conclusion of deliberation, the chair will inquire as to whether the board would like to recommend any taser policy changes. And then 2.1 says we could say no policy changes recommended, or 2.2 policy changes recommended, and by majority votes, the members of the board determine the taser policy change would be in the community's best interest. For this reason, the board elects to recommend taser policy changes for presentation to the chief of police for review and consideration. Whether we'd read that or not, that's exactly what we've been doing. And then we vote on recommendations for taser policy changes if we so desire. So the airing out is important, and eventually changes whenever we need to. Sunlight is the best policy, I think, that we should do as CPRB. So I'm happy that we're doing that. Coming back to, I don't see any hand raised of those people attending, so I'm gonna thus conclude that there isn't anyone. in public participation. So if no one has any other comments, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion.
I
to
make a
adjourn.
motion that we adjourn our meeting for the evening.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tony. And Tony Rice, you got cut out, man. You got to move.
I gotta get quicker.
We're good. I hope everybody has at least a couple of days break that you can eat and just roll around with your kids, family, grandparents, call them grandkids, right?
Yes, grandkids.
All right, let's have that vote to make it official, and thank everybody for coming.
Just prior to roll call, I would like to thank all of you all for your tremendous work and service here to the city of Urbana. I don't think our citizens really know how much you all do, so certainly it is appreciated. It has been a pleasure learning from you all and working with y'all, and I just want to say thank you. Carla, would you like to have a word before I call the final roll of 2021?
Carla's there, but
I missed it all. My entire thing froze as soon as he started speaking. So
I just thanked everyone for their service and asked that you want to have a final word before the final roll call of 2021.
Oh, I didn't hear it. No, thank you guys. Oh, Lamont said it best.
excellent. So that's the second of Le Monde.
With that being said, Mr. Allegretti.
Happy holidays, everyone, and Happy New Year. Thank you to everyone on board, and especially Carla and Lamont for doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But I vote yes.
Ms. Kendall.
Happy holidays, everyone. I'm hoping we get another woman on the board. Not that I don't mind being the only one, but we're gonna hope.
Let's do that.
I speak for all the women, but that's okay. But I agree. Yes.
Mr. Rice.
Yes, happy holidays to everybody. Stay safe, be blessed, do as best you can and stay safe. That's very important right now. Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, for me as well. And thanks to everyone for being so welcoming. It's been very interesting and very, very engaging on the board so far. So here's to another year. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Diaz.
Yeah, here's to another year. We've lived 2 years of COVID, guys. Not everybody can say that. So it's been a hard situation. We've adjusted, we keep rolling with it, and we do our best. We want to build better, and I thank you all for doing it. So my vote is a happy yes.